Okay. Being 5:33, we'll call to order the meeting of the Fitchburg Board of Public Works for Monday, February 21st, 2022. We have a full quorum in council chambers. Alder Wheeler, Michael Granetsky, myself, Dave Wilborn, and Kim Lobdell is via Zoom. Public appearances for non-agenda items. I do not believe we have any, Scott? Okay. So then we'll move on to approval of minutes from the February 7th meeting. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Granetsky. We have a second.
I'll second it.
Second by Wilborn. Discussion. Anyone have any changes or revisions?
I have one comment. Do we want to add other staff present? Do we want to add Andrew McFadden because he was there to do the transit presentation and answered a couple other questions?
I agree, Kim. I think we should add him as in the attendance to the meeting. So could we have so we would add Andrew McFadden in the meeting minutes as an attendee. And anyone have a problem with that? Then I guess we have to have a motion to amend the minutes. Someone move to amend the minutes to include Andrew McFadden?
I'll make that motion.
By Wilborn, do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, second, okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Now, to the main motion, all in favor of approving the revised minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Carries unanimously. Minutes are approved. Next, review items. Northfish Hatchery Road Hub update. And Mr. Wade, I think you're going to take it away? Is that the intent?
Yes, and thanks for the board for having me tonight. I'm Wade Thompson with City Planning. With me tonight as well is Scott Endel, our Parks Director. And I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully folks can see a big blue PowerPoint. And again, I think folks are probably generally familiar with the Hub project. We've kind of been at it for a couple of years, but we are nearing finalizing what I'll call phase one final design. And kind of given the scale and the scope of the project, we thought it made sense to kind of get in front of various relevant committees as we near that final design. And especially with this board's involvement in the Northfish Hatchery Road corridor, we thought you guys were especially kind of relevant to this project. So again, we're here tonight to give you kind of an update on our Hub project. So a few things I want to cover. We'll talk, again, this is kind of under what we call our Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative. So we'll talk about that very briefly, kind of put it in context, that this project into the broader initiative. And we'll talk more specifically then about the neighborhood where the project is located. Then we'll talk about the planning process. We'll talk about some specific phase one components. And then we'll go ahead and show you the final design as it stands at this point. And then we're certainly open to any questions or comments that the board might have. So again, every time we kind of talk about the Hub, it's important to remember why we're doing this. It's a very important piece of what I think is a very important city initiative, and that is our Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative. Basically, a kind of a strategic, comprehensive citywide effort to focus on 3 of our northern neighborhoods. And I would just say, generally speaking, doing better as a city in terms of serving our residents in those 3 neighborhoods. We did develop a strategic plan for the initiative back in 2019. So again, this project is kind of reflective of that strategic plan for the HNI. So moving into the neighborhood, again, I think the board is really familiar with the corridor. Obviously, you were kind of overseeing the redevelopment of the corridor over the past couple of years. But as we all know, it's in a very important corridor, not just in the city, but in the region. We get approximately 50,000 cars per day. I think it could kind of be viewed as Fitchburg's gateway. It's very heavily populated. Approximately 11% of our city's population lives in that neighborhood, with many more on the way. It is on our northern border, and it does adjoin Madison's southern border as well. So that's important to keep in mind. In terms of our residents up there, it's 100% multifamily, both aging and some new development, with what I would characterize as strip commercial. And I think very importantly, and probably one of the prime reasons we're here today, is that there's no developed park space in that whole neighborhood. So if you think about, since 1984, when the city has been, since we incorporated as a city, literally no investment in park space in that neighborhood up to this point. So moving into the site itself, again, a 3.5 acre site, kind of in the heart of our neighborhood up there. We'll talk about where it is exactly. And in terms of project goals, I would categorize two main goals. The first is to meet the social, recreational, and resource needs of our residents up there, as well as attract the broader community to that neighborhood. And the second goal would be to have this project serve as a stabilizing catalyst, spurring new investment and enhancing property values in the corridor, without displacing folks that want to remain in the corridor as it grows, so to speak. So we've been at this, as I mentioned, quite a while. And the first thing we do in terms of planning processes with these kind of projects is engage with the neighborhood. We took a little bit of a different approach with this process. We didn't do the traditional public meetings with city staff doing PowerPoints like I'm doing tonight. We knew that just wouldn't work. So we took a much more grassroots and organic engagement approach. We used some part-time city employees that live in the neighborhood that speak the language literally. They speak Spanish. So they were able to connect with a lot of our residents and really engage with those folks and figure out what this hub should look like. So with all that feedback, we came up with a concept. That concept led to our master plan, which we'll talk about. Or I guess the concept master plan was produced from that feedback, and that led to the final design, which is what we'll talk about tonight. So in terms of the concept and master plan, basically, kind of a real rough concept divided into two phases. The blue is phase one, which we'll talk about tonight, north side of Traceway Drive. The south side is phase two, orange. We won't really touch on that tonight, but certainly that concept is evolving, over time. And again, just to orientate folks, Fish Hatch is kind of off my screen to the right, running perpendicular to Traceway, which is the corridor right here. Our city golf course is down here. The High Line, which is that new senior housing apartment building, is right here. So again, our phase one and phase two straddles Traceway Drive. I would categorize phase one as enhanced park space. And again, we'll talk about what that means. And I would categorize phase two at this point in time as more of a community-centered type concept. So phase one components, there's 4 big components that we'll talk more about. The first one is a community or a park building. And in talking with Scott, our parks director, we really feel like it's a new model for facilities at our community parks. We'll talk more about what that means. We also think that as currently designed, that building would allow for a smaller footprint of phase two in terms of a community center if we continue down that phase two path. There also is what I'll call an outdoor covered hard court area, which could potentially have a year-round function. It would serve both recreation and also social gatherings, and we'll look at some renderings of that. We also are looking at kind of a catch-all playground, yard games, socializing seating areas, serving the whole spectrum of neighborhood and community residents from kids to senior citizens. And then finally, we have what we're calling an all-wheels track, which we think is a unique feature, not just in our park system, but regionally as well. And this track could serve pretty much anything on wheels that's recreation based, whether it's a bike, a skateboard, scooters. And Ceres, who folks might know, it's a Fitchburg based bike parts company. They make bike racks. They've been talking about these features for years, been trying to get cities to develop them. So they have been a partner with us from day one on this. And we're still talking about their specific role, but I certainly think there'll be resources from Ceres that help us get this all-wheels track built. So in terms of next steps, again, we're just kind of going out on the road to our various committees, really engaging with relevant committees and seeing what some feedback is. After that, we'll polish up our construction plans, per our stakeholder feedback. We do have public opportunities for engagement yet to come. I think in March, we're envisioning probably one last public open house to get this in front of the neighborhood. Obviously with COVID, we might have to think, how we can do that most efficiently. And then in February, we did meet with both the Parks Commission and our new H&I committee to get a recommendation of final design to council. So our H&I committee has that final recommendation. Our Parks Commission saw it in February. They wanted a month to think it over. So we're going to come back to them in March, and then they will make their final recommendation for final design to council as well. And then in the mix here as well is a meeting at council later in March to get final direction on final design. Once we get that, we will then submit construction bids, get some bid or put our documents out for bid, select and approve a bid, and then begin construction hopefully in spring or early summer of 2022. So with that, I'd like to get into the design itself, and just bear with me here. So we're going to start large, and we'll kind of get a little bit more detailed. So again, this is the site, north side of Traceway Drive. So Traceway is down here. Just kind of talking about those four main features. We've got our outdoor covered structure right here. We've got our community building right here. We've got kind of our playground, socializing, seating areas kind of at the core of the site. And then our fourth feature is that pump track, which you kind of see there'd be an access point off a Traceway or off the sidewalk there. And then you really get into the meat of the pump track at the north of the site. And then on the left side there are just some representative images of what the site will ultimately look like. And just kind of a closer view of the pump track. I'm certainly no expert on this type of feature. Again, this is pretty new, kind of an emerging trend in Parks and Rec. We do have some experts in terms of consultants that are planning this thing. Folks may know that City of Madison recently put in a bike feature at one of their parks not too far away at Leopold Park. So we actually have the same consultants that did that feature doing this feature, with the idea that we don't want to duplicate that feature. We want to complement and make something at this site that's really unique and that will draw users to the site. And again, you can just see some representative images of this all-wheels track. I do want to point out we are envisioning a hard surface. So some of these dirt pictures aren't quite relevant. Hard surface will certainly or likely cost a bit more upfront in terms of construction, but long-term, in terms of maintenance and upkeep, the benefits of a paved track certainly outweigh the cost of dirt. And then moving into some of the other features, I want to talk quickly about the covered hardcourt, which is kind of the area you see again on the left here. Again, could, as the image shows, it's set up for full court basketball, but could also do pickleball, could host various neighborhood events, whether it's farmers markets, concert nights, mini concerts, those sorts of things. And then on the right side is our community building. I guess I would kind of categorize it as a building that's a little bit different than any other park shelter, in our system. Certainly we have some elements that we have at, McKee or Hugo Jamestown. But again, given kind of the uniqueness of this neighborhood, we have some other features in here as well. So just quickly, this is the south of the building. We are planning for kind of an information area where we would have the building staffed. One of what we call our neighborhood navigators, which again are part-time city staff that live in the neighborhood. We envision maybe them, sitting at the info desk, answering questions, providing resources as needed. We do envision an office space for city staff, or if there's, neighborhood program and service providers in the neighborhood that need a space to meet a client, they could certainly reserve that area as well. We are envisioning a little resource area, maybe a computer or two. If a resident wants to come in and get some computer time, again, they could, reserve that area and do that work. Then kind of moving north in the building, envisioning, restrooms, pretty standard for for park facilities, some storage, mechanicals, and then we are envisioning a warming kitchen to feed or to serve both the picnic area outside as well as these two community rooms to the right. So again, we'll have two community rooms. We are envisioning a divider so folks could either rent the whole space or just one of the spaces. We are envisioning setting up one of the spaces with some basic tech. So not only could we do, community events, community suppers, those sorts of things, but also potentially some adult education, trainings, those sorts of things as well. And then just moving into some renderings. So this is that outdoor structure I mentioned. Again, this is Traceway Drive. We're looking towards Northfish Hatch. So this would be that covered feature. Again, could be set up for neighborhood gatherings as well as rec events as well. This is looking the other way. So now we're looking away from Fish Hatch towards the other end of the structure. Again, we envision, if we do have concerts or movie nights, folks would set up on this end and project towards the building. One little nice feature we're talking about is a mural wall, just kind of an element of public art, maybe get the neighborhood or school kids involved to really, add some flair to the site. And this is the building, the community building. So this is again on Traceway Drive, kind of looking north. You can see kind of the connection of the building, that outdoor structure. Then off to the right here is the playground. And just a couple of points on the architecture here. We did try to mimic existing city architecture, in terms of just kind of that look of City Hall or, our recent fire stations. We also did go for more of an urban form. I think initially we started out with a much more suburban looking rec type building, but given the corridor's kind of overall theme in terms of architecture, we thought more of an urban form fit in really well with the corridor. And this is showing a winter view of the site. Again, we are at this point including a proposal for an ice rink to get winter use up there. So that is another feature as well. Now this is looking, I guess, at the back of the building. I'm looking towards Traceway Drive. So again, you start to see the connection between that outdoor covered structure and the park building. We do have some, again, covered picnic space here. That serving window I talked about is right here. We're envisioning another window here, potentially for rentals if folks are renting any kind of sporting equipment. We could have that set up here. And then off to the left here, you'll see the playground area as well. And this is another view kind of from the back of the site. Again, this is looking towards Traceway Drive. You can see the outdoor structure, the covered picnic area, the building. And then you kind of see that what we call the pedestrian spine. And that's kind of, in my opinion, what ties the whole site together. And obviously we want to create some focal points for gatherings out there as well. So we're envisioning, again, seating areas and kind of a focal point of a fire pit as well. And then again, you can see the, excuse me, the playground off to the left there. And this is looking, kind of standing in the playground area, looking towards the building. And again, the idea is really making these spaces connected. So, Jimmy and Sally could be playing on the playground and mom and dad would have places to sit and relax and kind of keep an eye on them. And one more looking, I guess, now we're looking at from Traceway, kind of northwest. So you see the playground, you see that pedestrian spine, you see the building, and then you see the outdoor structure as well. And then kind of not penciled in here, but kind of off to the top of the screen would be that pump track. So again, that would be at the north of the site. And I think one last image here looking west along the sidewalk there. Oh, I took that back. One more image. So this is actually just kind of a cut through of the building itself. Again, so this would be the entrance. So you've got kind of that office area on the left here. You've got kind of that reception area in the middle there. We've got a hallway here. Again, we envision maybe opportunities for public art, getting the community involved. And then on the right there is the 2 community rooms. And you'll see we are proposing a lot of natural light, and then a retractable door as well to, again, allow for kind of the indoor-outdoor use of the building. So with that, I'm done. Again, the goal here was just to kind of give the board a sense of the hub project. I would say we're probably 96% done in terms of final design. So we're not looking to, reinvent the wheel here by any means. But certainly if the board has any, general feedback, we'd love to hear it. And I envision at some point soon, a contract will come before you in the next few months in terms of, constructing the site. So we just didn't want to surprise you with anything. So with that, yeah, I could certainly take any questions or comments. And Scott, I don't know if you wanted to add anything before we take questions or comments.
Maybe just a general comment. We did retain this property through parkland dedication. When the Highline development came in, there was a parkland requirement. So this was the 3-acre or so parcel of land that we did receive as part of that parkland dedication. So.
Board members, questions for Scott and Wade?
From a public works perspective, where does the runoff water from this new area go?
Yeah, we should add Tracy. Ted, before I get to that question, I want to thank the Public Works Department. Tracy Foss has been a partner in this project, so it's kind of a planning, parks and public works project. So Tracy and our consultant would probably be the best people to answer that question. If you do notice, the green hatched areas, those are kind of our stormwater areas. So we're certainly, going to be, accommodating city ordinances and all that stuff in terms of stormwater runoff. So.
Do we have a rough idea, and I apologize if this is already known, of what the annual maintenance costs of these final design elements would be?
Yep, we're still working through that a little bit because that kind of depends on what our ultimate final design direction is. But yeah, Scott and I have been working on that the past couple of months. Scott, I don't know if you want to chime in on any detail or.
Yeah, just a general comment that all along during this project, we really feel the success of the project is going to be that it's programmed and used. So certainly there's going to be, well, with new buildings, we'll have operational expenses, but as Wade mentioned, staffing potentially. So we really want this facility to be heavily used. So in turn, we are going to have some programming and operational expenses that come along with it.
And I was thinking more along the lines of just the ongoing maintenance. If there's going to be ice skating, for example, that's sometimes a heavy burden on public works staff in the middle of winter when that's going out there. Is this a park staff? Is this going to be public works trying to maintain this, especially also kind of looking at the bike trail concept or the hump concept? What was the maintenance expectation for that?
Bill, did you want to comment, or you want me to go ahead and comment, Bill?
Why don't you go ahead and comment on that, Scott?
Very good. And really, as Wade indicated, the goal or the idea specifically with the pump track, if you would, that it's a hard surface. So in turn, it is less maintenance, if you would. We're also looking at port-in-place surfacing for the playground, which really reduces the amount of maintenance with wood chips and things like that. Certainly, the skating rink maintenance and those kinds of things. This is going to be, an additional park facility, which is going to need additional, attention and maintenance, those kinds of things. So, but as Wade alluded to, we're really working to do a deep dive into that, those expenses, because certainly I'm thinking that the policymakers, the alders are going to want to have answers to those questions. So.
And my final comment is I was just out ice skating at Elver this past weekend, and they do the skate rentals. This is just more of a general comment. If you haven't already, would love some feedback on their operations, maybe for building design, to make sure that if we are doing equipment rentals, that we kind of mimic what they've got going out there, because that's an excellent, excellent facility.
Yeah, just to that broader point, that's a great point. I actually live by Tenny Park in Madison, and, similar setup there. And we had envisioned, and then, there's Monona. They've got a nice new rink as well. So yeah, we envision reaching out to those folks, kind of seeing what their best practices are. And then as it relates to the pump track as well, as I mentioned, Madison's got a year in with their pump track, and we've been talking with their planner as well. So again, we'll just, circle back with them and make sure we, again, kind of are up to speed on maintenance or issues that are coming up with these types of uses. So point well taken.
And then just another kind of general comment. Sorry, Kim, to cut you off.
That's okay.
When we look at phase 1 versus phase 2 versus phase 3, this seems, and this is just my general comment, this seems really ambitious for staff. Was there ever thought of going with a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, or does this all need to absolutely be part of phase 1?
No, another good question. So the initial concept, let me just back up here. And you're right, it is ambitious. So the initial concept was even more ambitious. It was a phase 1, which was pretty much what we talked about. And then a phase 2, which I believe was a 2-story, 23,000 square foot community center, which is a large building. So what in both are currently budgeted for. Phase 2 is obviously, a few years out in our CIP. But I think what we, as we kind of fleshed out phase 1, we wanted to make a feature that if phase 2 happens, and we know it currently is scheduled to happen, but if for some reason it doesn't happen, that phase 1 could stand on its own and serve the neighborhood and the community in terms of their needs. And then if phase 2 did happen, the idea that phase 1 and phase 2 would speak to each other. So I think what's happened in phase 1 is that the final design would, in my opinion, staff's opinion, allow for a much scaled down phase 2. Probably half the site of that initial concept, if not even less. Similarly, I think, again, honestly, from a staff's perspective, if phase 2 never happens, as we've currently conceptualized it, phase 1 will be an awesome thing for both the neighborhood and the city. So I guess that's point 1. Point 2 is, as we went from concept to final design has exceeded our current budget for phase 1, and we were anticipating that. And that's happened for a lot of reasons, inflation being a primary one. But what we're doing is we're going to give our decision makers various options in terms of implementing phase 1 or portions of it. And one idea we proposed is a phase 1A and a phase 1B. So phase 1A would take place this year. Bear with me here. So again, we talked about those 4 main components. So phase 1A would entail the kind of the core of the site. So the community building, the pedestrian area, and the playground and yard games area. And the phase 2 would entail the bike pump track and the outdoor structure. And the idea, and that would, if this happens the way we're proposing, and not saying it will, but if it does, that phase 1B would take place in 2023. Now, a couple reasons why we're proposing that. I think phase 1A is really the core of the site. I think that's a primary need in that neighborhood. In terms of phase 1B, there are a few potential grant or funding sources that might come online in the next 6 months to a year that could help us get close to really fully funding those other components. So yeah, to your questions, we have been thinking about all those things as we went from concept to final design. Again, our thinking's evolving. And in the next month or so, we will present various options to the council and then ultimately see what they like. So. And then I guess just one other quick point. You mentioned a phase 3. In our initial concept, a phase 3 was the golf course, basically improvements to the course itself, as well as the clubhouse and the maintenance facility. We don't currently have budgeting for phase 3, but again, as this project continues to evolve, we might see some interest in that phase 3 as well.
Kim, did you have questions?
Yeah, I did. And actually, Michael asked most of them and Wade answered most of them already. But I just have a couple comments. First of all, I do want to say, I mean, this looks really nice. You guys did a really great job. It looks like you put really a lot of work and effort and thought into this. And I think it'll be a great amenity for the area. A lot of my questions had to do with costs and exceeding budgets, and if you were going to try to like bid alternates, if the cost came in too high, so that you have some flexibility, I guess, as to what you could pick to try to build the whole thing. But I think you sort of addressed that. One of the comments that I did want to make was when I looked through this presentation, I saw one of the number one requests or whatever features that the from the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative that they were interested in was a water feature. So I'm assuming that was something like a splash pad that they have at McKee. And I was wondering if you guys talked about that at all, if you have any options to incorporate that into future phases. I mean, I know the one at McKee is very popular, but or what was the water feature? Because I don't really see that in this proposal at all. So did you purposely leave it out, or was it is it something that could potentially be put in coming down the road?
Yeah, good question. So, yep, that was a kind of a desired feature. And maybe just kind of qualifying this plan, we really tried to pack the site. It's not a big site, but again, given the kind of the density of the neighborhood, we try to get as much on here as we could, make it an incredibly active space, not just a space where there's, yards of lawn that nobody's using. So yeah, we did have in our initial concept, even in our initial final design, we had a water feature, kind of in this, where this number 3 is, this blue area. But just, talking about budgets and costs, it was just, we couldn't do it. And we had to, we had to make the cut, I guess, and not include it. So we have put in kind of I guess, just like a viewing area instead. I mean, it's not a water feature, but it's another feature that we think will, accentuate the site. Basically, this idea of kind of a centralized viewing point. So mom and dad could be sitting in the picnic area here, and, kids could be on the playground and on the pump track as well. In terms of bringing a water feature back somewhere else, potentially on the south side in a phase 2, again, depending on how that concept evolves. But just to clarify, we weren't envisioning a full-on splash pad. It was more of just, and Scott chime in here, but just, kind of the sprinklers or a couple of things that kids could play around on. So yeah, we thought about it. We tried to fit it in, but just in terms of a budget and things we really wanted at the site, it just didn't make the final cut.
And I can see that. I mean, that makes sense to me. I was just thinking, there may be a lot of areas around there that, don't have air conditioning, or sometimes when it gets really hot in the summer, sometimes just that little bit to cool down rather than, riding your bike everywhere and getting more hot, getting more heated up. But, and I understand that. I mean, you've got a lot of things in here, which I think is a good idea, that you are packing a lot into a small area. I think it'll be well used, but yeah, it's something to just keep in mind maybe for a future. And then after you get this going, maybe you'll be able to see what get some feedback from people that are using the facility, what might be really the most important features to add into another phase if you have. But, money is the controlling factor in a lot of cases. And as we all know, costs are going up. So you have to try to fit in the most important things at the beginning. So great job. I think it looks really nice. I think you guys did a really nice job.
One
Yeah,
other,
appreciate the feed.
sorry, one other quick question, kind of, Kim, you kind of mentioned it here a little bit. Was there something topographically for the hump track being right where it is? Because that seems like a lot of space that, doesn't maybe could be repurposed here. It's great to have in and around the park area, but if there's a phase 2 with more land, it'd be great to have a non-segregated kind of family area versus maybe more of a segregated bike area.
Yeah.
Just a
Yeah,
thought.
a couple thoughts. Yeah, good points. We're working with a group called IMBA. It's International Mountain Biking Association. They're pretty much the leading experts in pump track planning. So they kind of gave the site a lot of thought. I think one driving factor was trying to minimize, we got residences up here. So to the degree we could, and it'll be an active use, but, trying to respect kind of these residences up here in terms of a compatible use to the south. And then I think just the way it laid out, that's was kind of the best approach. There is some topography back here, kind of a little slope that would lend itself, well to a pump track. We did try to create some visibility, from the road. So I guess you don't see a lot of it, but you've got that little entrance point that'll create some visibility from the road. And I should point out this gray area here. It kind of serves as an access to the track, but it's also a feature in itself. So it's kind of like kind of got some rolls and undulations to it where, people can recreate on that as well. And then just to kind of quickly talk about the track a little bit more, we're envisioning this as kind of a beginner element, right up here. And then these loops would be more intermediate or advanced. So again, we feel like, kind of something for everyone with this feature. And just in terms of site constraints, attributes, we thought it made sense to, put it where it is. And to your broader point, again, whatever happens with phase 2, I envision some areas down there as being more traditional passive park space. So, little pocket park type features is kind of a nice complement to the more active, busy stuff going on, on the north side. So.
Jim, anything? Dave? I just got a couple comments. One, this is going to be twice what you originally had budgeted, and it's a great plan. Is there a need for the court to be covered? People been playing basketball and tennis and things outside in this country for 150 years. And I'm not sure that, that cost is needed. And the second, Scott and Wade, the parking lot, I think there might be parking on the street or on the south side somewhere. That might give you the space for a splash pad or something up there. I'm not necessarily sure you need the parking lot on there. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, appreciate the comments. Just a couple thoughts. Point taken on the outdoor structure. I mean, I think the options we'll give the council will be the structure as we presented it, just a hard court with no cover, or just a grass area. I think what the covered structure does is it's a couple things. It kind of creates an event space. So if we're talking, movie nights or, concerts, it certainly lends itself well to that. Similarly, if an ice rink is desired, talking with our consultants, having a covered spot would be desirable in terms of keeping the spots somewhat shaded. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there certainly could be a scenario where, it's just a hard court without a cover, or it's just a grass area. So, yeah.
Thank you, Wade. Any other questions?
Well, in maybe just in regards to the parking lot, Wade, maybe you want to speak about the conversation with public safety to
Yeah, good,
talk
good
about
point.
that?
So, yep, so obviously early in the game, we checked in with our PD and our fire department. And they generally were, really positive about the plan. But one thing we did discuss with our fire chief was just kind of accessing the site, in emergencies. So kind of what you see here is with this pedestrian spine, kind of connecting to the parking lot, and you see kind of a U shape. So that's basically an access to get fire trucks, kind of through it, so they can service the whole site. So that's, and I think we found a really nice compromise here because it serves public safety, but it also, I think really the site really works in terms of where the parking is and where that pedestrian area, that pedestrian spine is. Similarly, I think just your broader point, Dave, about parking, we did think about that, could we just do street parking but I think given the features at the site, we envision a lot of reservations for those community rooms, and just giving people that close access with a car, I think, made a lot of sense. So yeah, we did think about, those options, but at the end of the day, we thought parking on the site as well as, having that public safety thoroughfare, really ultimately served the site well, so.
I would just add it, what EMS or whoever would be there for the most is accidents on the track. I think that's a given. Occasionally someone gets hurt playing basketball, but it's going to be mostly they're going to be going to the track. I'm all for the track. The only thing I'd say, Wade and Scott, I wish we could add some coordination with the Madison School District. They're putting one in at their school, and then we've got one here. Like, this is the exact type of duplication where, really only one is needed. The kids aren't riding on that while they're at school, maybe after school a little bit. That it would have been nice to, someone pool those funds and just have one, but that ship has sailed. Thank you for the presentation. We appreciate your hard work on this.
Yeah, appreciate the comments, and yeah, I'm sure we'll see you probably in the near future, so.
All right, thank you, guys. All right, moving on the agenda. Next, a report from our Director of Public Works, Mr. Bill Balke, who has been patiently waiting here.
Yep, I've had enough time to write down some notes on the things that we've been doing the past month or so, and filled up quite a few pages actually. So the surveys that for the Beltline, they did extend the deadline for that to March 3rd. So if you haven't gotten those into me yet, just know that you do have a little bit more time, and please get those in. And thank you for those that did send those in already. Let's see. Staff-wise, we've got a lot of positions that are either open or will be opening up real soon. The Parks and Streets Maintenance Worker position is still open. We advertised for that. We had a resignation in our water utility. So one of the streets maintenance people moved over the water utility. So now we've got a streets position open for maintenance worker there. We're still advertising for our stormwater full-time engineer. We have a few applicants that have submitted. Those are being reviewed, and we'll interview if we feel those applicants qualify for that. An internal promotion for our GIS stormwater technician was promoted to the GIS coordinator. So we're going to be looking for a new GIS / stormwater engineer or technician for our department as well. And then the position description has been prepared and sent over to Carlson Detman for classification study for the assistant DPW city engineer position that will be going to personnel in March. So we've been writing position descriptions, advertising a lot, looking for people, moving people around, and busy in that area. Health-wise, I guess we're on the mend. We haven't had any COVID for the past couple of weeks, knock on wood, but it has made its rounds and had impact on our operations, but things are okay in that area. got a nice storm coming in tonight. It's going to be pretty nasty. So for everybody out there, please try to stay home, stay off the roads. It's going to be a steady accumulation of freezing ice, freezing rain over the night into tomorrow. And the temperatures are going to keep dropping, so our salt's going to become less and less effective. So at some point, there will be a point that we can no longer melt the ice, and we're going to have to switch over to some sand for traction. Just please be aware of that. Allow extra time, cautious drive, more space in between vehicles and things like that. Just be really cautious tonight. We're looking to apply for a couple of state grants that came out that are going to be coming available for the roads and resurfacing. One is for rural road resurfacing, and another one is for our urban projects. So we're looking at projects that we can fit into those categories and apply for those. They will pay for 80% of the construction costs. City would have to pay for the design. And so we're trying to get those projects put together for an application that are due April 1st. Lacey Road update. We reviewed 90% plans, and we're in the appraisal and acquisition stage right now. We're planning on a May letting for summer construction starting in June, hopefully. And we rebid the tree clearing for that project. The roundabout update at Lacey and Seminole, we're on the same track timeline for that. We are bringing the transportation project plat to you soon. Sam might have a better idea on when that's coming, or maybe not. She's not working on that one, but it's coming soon. And we're looking at the same time frame for construction on that to start in June through the summer and get that completed. Cyane Road, that major project, the transportation plat is being considered tonight at Board of Public Works and at the council tomorrow. I reviewed the 60% plans on that project, and we have a railroad hearing scheduled for the crossing at Lacey Road. We are currently designing a Mclaurie Interceptor sewer, an extension along MM. It would be just north of Mclaurie, south through the East Clayton area and up the hill a little bit. So we're trying to get that in place for planned development for the Royal Capital Group. That's on the west side of MM, south of Mclaurie, in that area, the Fosside property. Development-wise, Crescent Crossing Phase 3, we've reviewed the plans for that one. They want to get started on construction over there. And that's over at Lacey and Seminole. Yeah, just finishing up that horseshoe on the bottom there. Ocala Extension Development, the development for the Ocala redevelop or the multifamily area. That's by index and what would be the extension of Ocala to index. We reviewed the plans on that. Terra Vesta's third edition, we're doing plan review on that one as well. And Highfield Reserve got us some preliminary information about their first phase of that plat. Had several meetings over the past few weeks with large area developments with different developers over on the east side. That would be like in Lacey Road, Uptown Crossing, Nine Springs area. The library, the chillers and pump system, heat pump system that we have there, it's on its last leg, unfortunately. It's almost made it to 20 years, but we had some major components that are very expensive to replace fail recently. And we looked at the cost benefit of either replacing the system or replacing those components and felt that we need to replace the components on that. So we contracted with Strand Associates to do the design of that, the chiller system. And we have our kickoff meeting on Wednesday for that project. We're planning to fast track it because the replacement of the ordering and replacement of the equipment is about 22 weeks out. So we're trying to get it done before the next heating season. This summer probably will be uncomfortable if anything else fails on the heating or the cooling system, but we're trying to get that completed as quick as we can. Stormwater, I'm doing more research on the stormwater private drainage areas for everyone. And hopefully I'll bring back, a report on that for the next meeting. So I've been doing that. Floran Drive, we're going to have a neighborhood meeting either the 28th, 1st or 2nd at 6:30, 7 or 7:30. Got a doodle poll out there for the neighborhood to see what works best for all of them. Cheryl Drive, the design, we reviewed 60% plans, and as well as the swale through the McKee Farms Park. That project has about 60%, and got some comments back to them for that. We have a kickoff meeting for the Nine Springs Pond Sod Farm construction, or the design for that project. That'll be coming up in the next week or so. So that project is starting up. And I'm trying to find some time in the meantime to take a look at all of those RFPs for Dunn's Marsh, TMDL, and the Seminole Glen projects. So got to review those. I promised I'd get them done by the end of the month and get responses out to the consultants I'd submitted. Water-wise, well 11 has failed, and we have to pull the pump and the shaft. The column, something broke in the column, and we're not getting any water out of it. So there's a major repair and major emergency bills that are going to be coming forward for that well for the repair. We are drawing water to that area. Well 11 is located over at Jones Farm and Lacey Road. And so we're to assist with the water in that area. We're pulling water from the west side area, and that's stirring up some of the mains, and some of the water is brown. So in light of, trying to get out there and we're trying to flush those mains so that the sediment that's in those that got stirred up from drawing the water from that area. We've gotten a few complaints about that, but we're trying to flush them, and it doesn't go well when there's freezing conditions outside. So unfortunately, that's something we're trying to balance out at this point, but that's it for the water right now. That's all I had time to write down. Wade was presenting.
Thank you, Bill. You need that well problem like a hole in the head. Questions for Bill? I had a couple. Bill, the grant, the road resurfacing, what's the source, what's the funding source for that? Is it state, federal?
It would be state. There's federal that's coming in through the state, but it would be a state grant application for that.
Okay. Is that, we haven't had that before. Is this something new?
I'm not 100% sure if it's new. They were trying to use existing programs in place to funnel the funding to locals, and I can't remember which one this one is. If it's SDP urban or it's a rural funding. LRIP, I think it's an LRIP for the rural, and STP urban for the urban projects. So there's two programs that they're using the funding for, but we're going to be applying for those.
Okay. Second question, the Mclaurie Interceptor sewer, will that be a deferred assessment for that cost, or will it be directly, to the benefiting property, or a partial? Do you have a sense on that?
That would be an assessment to the adjoining property owners. Deferral would probably, the city is putting that in, it's not being requested. So deferral would be until time of development or connection is needed.
Okay. Then the last, just on the well failure, how old is that? How old is that well? It's not that old, is it?
I couldn't tell you. We did maintenance on that in 2017-18.
Okay.
So it's, we pulled it in 18 and did some repairs on it. We're investigating why there was a column failure.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask, if you can find any root cause of that, whether if it's cathodic or anything like that. Let us know. Anyone else have a question for Bill? Okay. Thank you. Take your breath now, Bill. All right. Okay. Next, we'll move on to our agenda items. The first and only one, Resolution R 2422, authorizing the relocation order and TPP related to reconstruction Sign Road from Aurora Avenue to McCoy Road we have a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Moved by Wheeler, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Granetsky. So this is.
And I'm going to recuse myself
Thank you.
from this item.
Thank you, Kim, appreciate it. So this is dealing with the acquisition of strips of land along the road, mostly for stormwater easements. Bill, would that reflect that accurately, Bill or Samantha?
Yeah, it's some for stormwater and it's for grading easements along the roadway for the improvements that would be going in. We need some area probably behind some of the sidewalks that would be going in and things like that. So this is, Sam's probably got a pretty good idea on the details of where everything is, but in general, yes, it's land that we would need for, stormwater, utility extensions, roadway widening, things like that.
Samantha, approximately how many parcels or how many different property owners are we going to be requesting easements or requesting buying property from?
I am counting right now. I think about a dozen, but I can get back to you with an exact number.
That's close enough, close enough.
Okay.
So the last question I'll have is, was this included in our estimate, our budget for acquiring right-of-way land for this project?
Yes, it was. We included the real estate acquisition services as part of our contract, and we've been including an estimate of the cost of the real estate in the different construction cost estimates we've been providing.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's my hope we don't have to condemn any property here, that we're able to acquire these, so I'll keep our fingers crossed. Does anyone have any questions for Bill or Samantha here? Right. Samantha, thank you for being here to answer questions for us. Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 2422, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next Board of Public Works meeting is Monday, March 7th. Jim, I might have to ask you to host or to chair the meeting. Depending on if I have a remote access in Minnesota where I'm going to be at, I'll let you know.
It's fine.
All right. So if you know you're not going to make it, please let us know as soon as possible. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Wilborn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Wheeler. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. We are adjourned.